Smiles stretch wide where no one goes. The bags are black, we crop them out, but the soil still knows what it's about. Atomic hope parade, march in line, pretend it's safe. Smile wide for every lens, just don't ask how the story ends. Oh, sweet and clean. Radioactive dream. No talk of counts or iodine. They test the fish, but never mind. The isotopes all share the stream and settle soft into the dream. Just clean, just calm.
That song cracks me up, eh? Puts a smile on your face because it's just the irony behind it. But it's a really appropriate song for the first story tonight. That's why I played it. It's another song by James Lucid, a filmmaker and a musician on YouTube. Here we go. Oh man, didn't think we were going to get a show in. Alrighty. I should keep the headphones on because it keeps me in check. You can call in at 709-589-4406. 709-589. We're in Canada. Hello. Hello, Tokyo Rose. I got a crazy show for everybody tonight. Not sure how long it's going to last, but we're here. That's all that matters. Alrighty. Japan grapples with mental health. And like I seen that, I was reading another story. Like, oh, that's the Fukushima effect, right? So I didn't know what a chicken was. Oops. So, man, what a crazy country. You can kind of see that word right there, probably. That's what chicken means. But wait till you get a load of this story. This is really something. This is not something you're going to see in another country in the context. Japan has become one of the top tourist destinations in the world, with a record-breaking 37 million victims arrived last year, /tourist/victim. And there's another problem that's not getting much attention. And it's not about tourists causing trouble. Really, 37 million people, you're going to have a few troublemakers. They got 36 million people in Tokyo. Is there any troublemakers there, I wonder? It's a report of Japanese people committing alleged criminal acts against foreign visitors. And I was like, this might be surprising in a country that prides itself on safety. They actually, and you'll agree with me at the end of this story, they don't have the right to use the word safety in their culture. But the issue is chicken /GROPING. Now we know how Calm Down Charlie was created. This is probably the strangest story I've ever read. For the third biggest economy on top of that. Story's based on this girl who now lives in France. Gee, I wonder why. She's Japanese. On a real-life experience of growing up in Japan and being GROPED on the trains when she was a middle and high school student. So they pack everybody on the trains, right? And this disorder is rarely seen globally, but it is sadly all too common in Japan. It's prevalent. And the victims are just, they accept it. And so there's up to 3,000 cases reported each year. But that's just a fraction, right? She said she was groped almost every day during her 6 years of commuting to school. Every day. Now, I don't know about anybody out there, right? I'm a father. And if my daughter had that happen to her once, I would lose my mind, right? Imagine it happened to her every day. Every single day. By bankers and businessmen and politicians and everybody else that gets on these subways. Predator. It's a predator. So imagine the entire society of females, and it's we've covered different variations of this stuff. How women are absolutely treated like a paper towel. And it isn't treated as a criminal offense under Japan's penal code because all the men down there are doing it, see? Lawyers and judges and doctors. Japan's reputation of a haven for crimes. It's simply unacceptable that a situation continue where so many people are at risk of violence in their everyday life. I mean, my goodness, right? Seriously. Your daughter's going to school, she takes the subway, and she's guaranteed to be... It's just unconscionable. It's just inconceivable. But because Japan, and you got to think about Japan. Japan is a very unique country on top of other things. I'm not going to go down the long list of stuff I can talk about. But one of their quirks, their perversions, was they used to have, and they got vending machines for everything, including little girls' underwear. And they would give these children like 500 pairs of underwear and these permanent locking bags. And so all they had to do was put them on, take them off, and put them in a bag, and they make $5. And then they put them in vending machines, and they sell out like crazy. If that's not the strangest culture, what actually is, I wonder? Like, for a developed country, right? For a country that prides itself, that's not a safe haven for your daughters. I can tell you that much right now. If they're going there skiing, or they're going there anyway, it's not going to be a safe haven, right? Oh my. That's crazy. Just the craziest thing imaginable. It's heartbreaking, eh? Giant cherry blossom tree resembling a waterfall draws visitors to Fukushima prefecture town. It's up by Koriyama. And the tree is believed to be over 100 years, 1,000 years old. It's a 1,000-year-old tree in a nuclear wasteland. And scumbag Japan is manipulating people to go into the nuclear wasteland. This is criminal, right? This is terrorism, poisoning these people. They refuse to accept that Fukushima had any adverse side effects when you had 36 reactor cores melt down. Excellent connection. I'm having a big problem with my computer, because I use an external computer for this part of the screen. It's my controller, right? It's the one that's like, so my external computer, because my operating system, it's a TriCaster. It's unbelievably expensive piece of equipment. But you can't just have that piece. You got to have all kinds of other pieces, unfortunately, right? And But I still got to have an external computer to make this work. Whether it's going to be up here or not, I still need it there to turn the show on, to monitor the show, and turn the show off, right? I can't do it through my system. You can't add anything onto my system. I can't go out and put like a Firefox on my system or something like that. Excuse me. But on my laptop I can, right? Well, that thing is torture because I'm always unplugging it and dragging it in, and I got to plug it in the studio. And after, because that's my main one for the TV, right? I don't have cable. I haven't had cable for 30 years or something. And then I have to drag it out, and then where the power cord plugs in, that part there is really just a couple of strands, eh? It's designed to break eventually. And so it's given me a huge problem the last week and a half. James donated almost $300 last night, and so I ordered a computer today. It was like, God, I can't keep doing what I'm doing. It's killing me. And I'm not doing... so that one, when it comes up, is going to just stay in the studio. And it's just going to be just for this one job, right? Hey, it's nothing special. Don't get me wrong. It's 3.7 gigahertz, 16 gigabyte RAM, blah, blah, blah. It's enough. It's got enough SSD hard drive to put a big chunk of my expeditions on. And so that's going to be a cool feature, right? Okay, let me get back to that. The 36, I was having a hard time with the poll because I wasn't going to do a show. And then I said, no, if I'm awake, I should do the show, right? And I had a hard time framing that narrative because you had 36 reactor cores at the top of 4 reactor buildings in 8 fuel pools. So you only got 100 digits you can put here, right? So I was messing around. I finally gave up on it because I had to get in the studio and had to post a preamble. And then you got to post a poll too, right? Because why not? The 36 reactor cores that melting down is what it should have been. They didn't have enough digits. And it should be, the 36 reactor cores melting down at Fukushima's 4 reactor buildings with 8 fuel pools in them cause an extinction level event. That's what the poll should say, right? But I was trying to ram the whole thing together and get in the studio. And I worked on the show today in case I can... in case I was going to do a show. Well, I got to do it anyway. If I don't work on the show, I'll lose my mind. And we got 9 viewers, 8 likes, 10 votes. That first story is insane. Like, they're treating women down there. It's despicable what they're doing. So how can you respect a culture that's supposed to be samurais and full of honor and mystique and they got all these, traditional things, and once they got the subways, it was open season on little girls down there. Disgusting parasites. So Maharu, Fukushima Prefecture, and I said I heard that name before, but I couldn't remember. I was thinking. It was up by Kuriyama. Kuriyama, so Miharu is up right there. Fukushima is not very far away. It's about 30 kilometers away. Nuclear wasteland, 30 kilometers away. So they're tricking all these people to go in, and they got 37 million tourists in this last year, which is a record. And like we've covered this a lot 4 and 5 and 6 years ago, how they were tricking tourists into going there. And I think their game was to get 30 million tourists there in a year. Now they're at 37 million. Because all the scumbag media is happy to help them worldwide, right? But bless your heart, James, for donating. That was prime time. That really did take a load off my shoulders to order in that computer. I'll have it on Saturday, I think, by the sounds of it. Super happy about that. A new mouse, new keyboard coming with it. And I got a screen there, a decent screen, a proper screen, right? And because this... And so now I think I might start doing some shows once a week. I'll come in the studio and I'll go live, and then I'll do the whole process of putting my shows together. And you can see it all happening. Maybe you can do the same thing eventually, right? Because I'm not going to be around forever, right? I'm not very healthy. And people need to learn how to do this. Just give me a second. I'm looking for Koriyama. We got a story on Koriyama about kids. How they're kept in a school in a nuclear wasteland. And they know it's a nuclear wasteland. The teachers and the town council and the mayor. And the mayor. Just bear with me. Let me try this, maybe. Yeah, that's it. Good job, Dana. Good job. Don't mind me. I'm pretty silly for the most part. Life used to be so innocent before Fukushima, you know? They just ruined the planet, ruined all the species, ruined the future of humanity. Compromised the future of humanity, 8 million species. And then they went ahead and successfully covered it up. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles to shield the students from radiation. This story blows my mind. Why not move the students out instead of using water bottles? Because, like, if... Like, say you had a capsule, and in the capsule was radiation, and it fell on the side of the road right along the school. And it's in the capsule, though. It's not airborne or anything. Like, Fukushima is madness, airborne. You know, they picked up 30 million one-ton bags and just 3% of the property of topsoil. That'll give you some concept of what we're talking about. Elementary school in Japan is using water bottles to shield the students from radiation. Now, the radiation they're actually shielding them from is not a capsule. And that's the only way that could actually work a little bit. But the radiation that they're shielding it from is radioactive fallout. And every house in that community of 300,000 people, every business, including the school and the malls and the supermarkets, everything is entitled to be decontaminated, but they don't have enough homeless people. They've spent $28 billion just picking up one-ton bags of radioactive fallout. An elementary school in Koriyama City, which is right alongside a few miles away from that last spot, where the peach trees are too, in the nuclear... This is a nuclear wasteland, which is located in the Fukushima prefecture, some 34 miles west of the Fukushima Daiichi power plant. Sounds like a long way, but the radiation actually covered the entire planet. So imagine what it's going to be like within 1,000 miles of it. And this model is based on 23 days of cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima background levels. And you're talking about 20, 30, 40 million atoms per cubic meter of air. This is only 23 days. It's covering the entire planet. That has 10 half-lives of 30 years, 300 years. Do you really think that's gone away? You really think that's not assimilated in every tree, every flower, every leaf, everything? And not only that, it pulses energy 600 feet every second. So being 34 miles away from 36 reactors that melted down doesn't really... It's just like being at the reactors because the inventories were so large. So they're using water bottles to shield radiation coming from the courtyard of the school and other areas around the school buildings. The bottles are filled with water and placed inside of the square boxes that are stacked around the classroom. Now this is inside and outside. It's inside and outside. The children were encouraged to bring water bottles, and then they fill them up with water, and they stack them inside, outside the classroom to stop the energy. They're thinking they're stopping the energy from coming through. But see, it's everywhere. The numbers there, and I'll show you the numbers coming up for Koriyama City. Placed inside of square boxes stacked around the classrooms. According to the school, it seems to reduce the radiation levels inside the school by, it seems. But it's airborne. The children should be moved out of this community, not just the school, but the community. The teachers should be arrested for child abuse. If they're smart enough to be a teacher, they're smart enough to work out that is radioactive fallout. It's not just a container with something in it that's pulsing energy. So if you've got a container with cesium in it, it's got to pulse energy 600 feet. And it doesn't care if it got to go through two houses. When it goes through the third one that you're in, it's still going to wreck your chromosomes, your DNA, your cells, and everything else every second. So victims in Koriyama City, the residents, have been concerned about the high amount of radioactive material which has been found around the town. Well, for many years, the 1-ton bags were stacked all around the town. It's just, what kind of society are you going to end up with by doing stuff like that? It's a very sick society, like physically sick society. Koriyama City. So, United Nations Scientific Committee on the Effects of Atomic Radiation, UNSCLEAR, which are scumbags from the UN, they done a study in 2012, beginning of 2012. So, the first line over there is the name of the communities. The next one is the population of the community. And the next one, they're only acknowledging cesium-137, which is absurd. Because what about the plutonium? What about the uranium? What about the curium isotopes, which is the biggest byproduct of the radiated fuel rods? What about strontium and americium, neptunium? What about the 1,000 other fission products? Do you get where I'm going with this? Because that matters. And if it was your kid, you would be unbelievably concerned. So Koriyama City, 341,000 people is 162 counts per minute. 162 counts per minute. Let's come back to that other story. Miharu, M-I-H-A-R-U. Here it is. Miharu town is 83,000 counts of cesium-137 per square meter on the ground. Miharu. And that is where they're dragging all the tourists into, from the unsuspecting, trusting, vulnerable, complacent tourists. But they're only acknowledging cesium-137. And so whoever done the study, of course this is UN that done this particular study, and downplayed it. Yet, these numbers, 162,000 counts permitted in Koriyama City, they're saying it's 88,000 or 83,000 in Maharu town, but they're only acknowledging cesium. So for each cesium-137, there's 100 times strontium-90 produced, for instance. And the biggest byproduct is the curium isotopes. Curium isotopes, you need lead shielding 20 times thicker than you do for plutonium. And while school lunches are tested for radiation, parents are concerned because they are largely unable to find out where the items were originally produced. You're in a nuclear wasteland, and they won't tell you where their children's lunches are being produced. But I can show you the headlines of where they're produced, okay? Right into Fukushima death zones. Oh, I wanted a really cold water. I got water here. But because Koriyama City is outside the evacuation zone, the government has barely conducted any decontamination work activities. They've barely done it, man. 30 million bags. What they done was they scratched up the 1-inch topsoil, 2.5 centimeters of topsoil. In fact, it wasn't even that. It was 3/4 of an inch of topsoil. So the next time that you have the ability to go out in your garden or somebody's garden, and you got a shovel, take the shovel and try to scratch up 3/4 inch of topsoil and fill up a bucket. And you'll appreciate what I'm telling you is it's such an insignificant amount. It makes some difference, but very little difference to the actual radiation fallout. You want to dig up at least 20-25 inches of topsoil, the whole country. You want to take every building out of the country, not just Fukushima Prefecture, but the entire country, and put it in a nuclear repository that doesn't exist anywhere on the planet. And stupid doesn't stop there, unfortunately. The man behind the Fukushima's town strawberry sheep, Obama. Bear with me. I thought I had sheep here somewhere. Well, what do we got here? Let's check the poll out again. Oh, there's the poll. The 36 reactor cores melting down at Fukushima's 4 reactor buildings that had 2 fuel pools at the top of each building, so that's 8 fuel pools, caused the current extinction event we're seeing post-Fukushima. They do that one more time, huh? Oops. Because the construction company ran in the capital got involved in projects in the town. So he relocation, he doesn't understand radiation at all. So he's just a construction guy and got his own little business, right? I got tons of stories like that. Let me fix that, because if not, I'll be using sheeps for the rest of the show. We got something better than sheeps here, I think, don't we? A good old alien hand. Because the construction company ran in the capital, they tell so many lies in each story that if I don't skip a bunch of lies, so you got to read the whole article, then you got to come through the article again and start screen capturing the logistics of the story. Otherwise, you end up with a whole bunch of stuff you got to cover, and it's almost impossible. They tell so many lies in every story about nuclear, anywhere on nuclear. Like, everything is written by the International Atomic Energy Agency. And it's given to the journalists and different medias, and they'll put their name on the story. Nobody, and I mean nobody, is going to, out in the main medias, is going to write a story about nuclear, publish it without giving it to the International Atomic Energy Agency first. There's no doubt that's what's going on. Well, working on the demo, if they do decide to write one, it's such a complicated story to tell so many lies and deceit and dishonesty and frame it. It's a very difficult trick, right? We've been covering it for a very long time. You really got to be an insider to tell these types of lies that they tell. While working on the demolition of houses and decontamination in Okuma, so you're a basket case, which is joined onto the nuclear plant. You can look out every day. At some point, you're going to see the melted reactors. You're right there, right? So if you're working there, it's because you're complacent, incapable of comprehending. Like they got work, they're making a good dollar, blah blah blah. So they're happy. They're not capable of comprehending. Like everybody in Koriyama City, it's hard to comprehend that people actually live there. For many years they were driving around with plus 1 million bags around their community in the farmlands. 1-ton bags. How do you pretend that doesn't exist every day? Okay, kids, I gotta pick up from school. Don't forget, don't go looking around on the way home. I don't want you. It doesn't make any sense, see? Decontamination Okuma, which is south side of the Meltdowns, 36 reactors that melted down, which host a crippled they want to say nuclear meltdown. They call it crippled. And so every time I hear that, I want to go cripple a journalist. The number one nuclear power plant, number one killer of all species. The thought came to him that he needed to do more to help revitalize the town. He needed to do more. The thought came to him. You sure that wasn't he wasn't taken advantage of by the nuclear industry? Which bore the brunt of the tsunami. You got to throw that out there to keep people stupid. And nuclear meltdown. Not nuclear meltdowns, because when 36 reactors don't count, you're in real trouble, okay? Caused by the earthquake. So the tsunami and put the nuclear meltdown in the center of an earthquake at the end of it. So something so prominent as a nuclear meltdown deserves a lot more than a couple of words. A lot more prominence than a couple of words. It accumulated in him rearing what he dubs strawberry sheep. That the meat in a nuclear wasteland, you're 2 kilometers at best away from ongoing nuclear meltdowns. You've been abandoned, and there's only a couple of people stupid enough to move back into it. Whose meat is proven popular for its distinct sweetness. So he's selling the meat in the nuclear wasteland. It gets worse. The result of the animals consuming feed containing locally grown strawberries and locally grown straw. These people are insane. How is this not insane? You're 100 years or 200 years away from cleaning up the site. The community has been abandoned for 14 years. And you got a little tiny section carved out where they alleged it's right at the subway where they're groping all the... We covered at the beginning of it. That's a crazy story. Very disappointed in the male population of Japan. Clearly I was right when I called you a bunch of scumbags. The result of the animals consuming feed containing locally grown strawberries, not just strawberries, he's mixing it in with the locally grown feed that he's feeding the sheep in Okuma. There's millions of 1-ton bags stored there from other areas that they shipped there. Which host a cripple, number one, it's a nuclear meltdown with 4 reactors and 32 reactor cores and 8 fuel pools have all melted down. Let me show you some of it, just in case you haven't seen any of this. I'm going to show you reactor 3 explosion. There is nothing there to that building. That's 9 reactor cores, each of them 100 times the size of Chernobyl. Chernobyl was a graphite reactor. It was a new reactor. It was a small reactor. These are massive reactors. These are pure uranium, pure plutonium. Reactor 3 was a plutonium mixed oxide reactor, which is thousands of times worse than that reactor. That reactor doesn't even exist, but yet here's the media pretending they're at the top of the building. But this is a mental illness to pretend this is not happening. I can't even wrap my mind around it, how people could be that complacent. The brainwashing, because like as children they're brainwashed by SpongeBob, and then they're brainwashed as they get older by The Simpsons for the last 30 years. And Spider-Man and the Hulk. And the list is very long, right? The propaganda is unbelievable worldwide. It's unbelievable. The mutton, the meat, is expected to be added to a list of return gifts for people who make donations to Okuma. Why would you donate to a nuclear wasteland for it? So people can move back in there and get sick and die. Why would you do that to people? What is wrong with your heads? And to get, I apologize, not turn the mic off. I'm a little worn out. I'm getting a bit better. Tax donation system. So if they donate it, they can write it off in their taxes to help send people into a nuclear wasteland. It's absurd. It's absurd. It's very disappointing that they think they're humans. The bleeding of some 440 sheep is heard. And Matsumoto, who had no prior experience in livestock farming, feeds them and cleans their shed. So they find a useful idiot and they put him up on a pedestal, and he's sending that article out to all of his family and friends, and he's walking around like a stud, like a peacock, top of the world. Guaranteed to murder. He's a serial killer. He felt there was something lacking to attract more people. Like, people are not there because it's nuclear waste down shit for brains. I mean, you're decontaminating this place and you think it's safe. You think it's like picking up broken glass after an accident. You're that stupid. Well, I suppose it's better he's doing that than on the trains groping a little. I started to wonder if there was anything I could do for Okuma. Yeah, you can stop tricking people into coming back into a nuclear wasteland. Stop growing food and poisoning people, you piece of shit. You worthless maggot. You parasite. You disgusting parasite. Despicable, man. What you're doing is uncalled for. It's serial killer, right? This was Matsumoto light bulb moment. Oh, if I could rear sheep in a nuclear wasteland, the genius said, and make a name for them, surely it would lead to the revitalization of a nuclear wasteland, he thought. Your parents should be arrested for not fucking drowning you when you were born. And so he began his journey into sheep farming. He started studying how to rear sheep roughly 3 years ago, including how to feed them and clean their breeding facilities. The more he learned, the more he realized in order to make Okuma radioactive sheep stand out, they need to have a distinguishing element, like uranium, plutonium, and americium's not. Around the same time, strawberry farming was taken off in the nuclear wasteland. We covered that. The farmers were coming in once a week, and then they were leaving after a couple of hours to maintain their field, and they're right out of Dodge. And they don't have to worry about birds or animals coming in and eating their strawberries. Makes me sick to my guts just reading the story. So, dummy moron Matsumoto paid a visit to the Nexus farm Okuma, a public-private venture funded by the town, the nuclear wasteland town, that engages in strawberry farming in 2019. We've covered all of that as it happened along the way. He joined at Okuma Mirai, a local company engaging in projects to revitalize agricultural in the nuclear wasteland of wastelands, right alongside of the world's biggest nuclear meltdowns in human history, 36 melted reactor cores. 2 kilometers away from that. It's hard to imagine they found somebody that stupid that can still tie their shoes. It's just despicable. I'd like to get him on the show and show him some stuff. He started to mix strawberries into the pasture grass, / nuclear waste. Like anything within 200 miles, any direction, is a serious nuclear wasteland. The worm's excrement is at 1.4 million atoms per kilogram. I mean, this is absurdness wasteland all over Fukushima prefecture. Over time, he started to notice changes in the textures of the sheep. He's eating it himself. Hopefully, I shouldn't say it, but hopefully it incapacitates him so he can't continue to murder people through the food sources. Last October, Dip Dummy served mutton from his farm to a group of people for the first time. And all of them commented the meat tasted sweet and had little odor. What were they doing in a nuclear wasteland, I wonder? And thus the concept of strawberry sheep was born. And the people that eat it got cancer and heart problems and liver problems and lung problems, respiratory, pituitary, and thyroid, and adrenaline, and Alzheimer's, dementia, and autism, and diabetes, and Down syndrome, and schizophrenia. Okumi had decided to add his mutton to his list. The community that doesn't exist, but has a mayor that doesn't live there, decided to add the radioactive sheep meat, the mutton, to its list of return gifts under the hometown tax system. Right? Real life predators. All of these people should be in jail for the rest of their lives. The results of the animals consuming feed containing locally grown pasture grass and hay, and mixing in locally grown strawberries in a nuclear. What do you grow food in a nuclear wasteland? It's just so heartbreaking that as soon as you find somebody stupid, they put them on a pedestal and promote them. If every newspaper burnt down tomorrow, how could anybody blame the world for doing it? You could be still angry at them for not doing it sooner, but how can you blame them for trying to kill a thing that will kill you eventually? The conservative argument against nuclear power in Japan. Right, the left, the far left, the extreme left, the nihilistic left, the Pol Pot left, the Mao left, and then they got the same thing for the right. You had the Great Divide. Opposition to nuclear power in an earthquake-prone Japan is often seen as the province of political progressive. They got this picture there of 1-ton bags. It's stored in Buddy's garden. Of course, he's not going to live there. But, I mean, you're talking about 30 million of these. It's equal to 5 rows of 1-ton trucks bumper to bumper on the entire planet. Try wrapping your mind around this statement. A former judge argues that conservative thinking should lead to the same conclusion that nuclear power is not the wise choice for Japan. Right, and so every story that you get about the nuclear in Japan excludes any rationale, any evidence, and this is extraordinary to see a picture. That picture is extraordinary. When was the last time you seen pictures of bags, 1-ton bags of radiation in Japan? A long time. A couple thousand stories ago or something. We cover this as often as we can handle it. In Fukushima Prefecture, evacuation orders are still in effect across more than 300 square kilometers in what the government has designated as closed to inhabitation indefinitely, or difficult to return zone. The government is your number one enemy. Period. You're going to have to find a way to abolish governments worldwide. They're just completely lost the plot of what their jobs is. This is in spite of the fact that the annual safety limits for radiation exposure among the general population was lifted from a millisievert to 20 millisieverts, but the radiation fallout across the country, you can't go measuring radiation in millisieverts. Like my Geiger counter is in counts per minute. I call it, text me, and I never got back to her because when I seen it, I was going down for the count. And I meant to text you back, call it, so sorry about that. Because my Geiger counter wasn't working last night or something. I changed the battery. Batteries in these things will last 6 months or something. And that seemed to fix it anyway. Amongst the general population, we're lifted from 1 millisievert to 20 millisieverts. So a millisievert is 1,000 microsieverts. A microsievert is around 750 counts per minute times 20. But you don't measure it in microsieverts, you measure it in counts per minute. Just bear with me. And if the supply of electricity or water is interrupted, there's a risk of a meltdown. Immediate meltdown. Right? Immediate meltdown. So that's one of the rare stories where you actually got a little tidbit. But the problem is you get too few of that, and it's very hard for people to, right, come full circle and say, oh, they showed you pictures of one-ton bags, but just a fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent of the one-ton bags that they picked up. See, 30 million one-ton bags, that should mean something. Just hang on, I'll find the caveat for this one. There we go. Just give me 1 second. There we go. It'll just take me a second to put some of this together for you. Because you're talking in millisieverts, and that's not how you count radiation. I just want to give you a few examples. Almost there. The story's so crazy, right? I'll get it. Here we go. Let's do this. So BQ is Becquerels. It's a pulse of energy every second, every minute, depending on what your Geiger counter you're using. So cesium levels up to 334,000 becquerels per kilogram, not millisieverts, not microsieverts, but physical atoms. So each one of these becquerels are caused by an atom. The atom will pulse energy every second, like an explosion in every direction. And if it's in your body, you can imagine damage it's doing every second, or a bird or insect or anything else, or your kid or something, right? And it is. Cesium levels up to 334,000 becquerels per kilogram. So you got to multiply that by 66.6 to get a square meter. So the incinerator dust at 70,000 atoms a kilogram. This is absurd numbers. So they would have released 90 times more during the burning, the incinerators. So that will just, you can't destroy it and incinerate it, you just release it back into the ecosystem to attack something with replicating cells. And there's no species, including humans, that have an autoimmune trigger in their body to defend against it because our body doesn't know what it is. It's a foreign object. It's not stardust. It's not from the solar system. It's called anthropogenic man-made because we created these elements. And they're on the periodic table, but only in the last 80 years because we created them. And the problem is that we don't have any way of defending against it. So our body attacks it relentlessly for the rest of your life with white blood cells. Eventually, if you live through it, it'll build a tumor around it. So imagine having 1 million of them in your body, and your body's trying to build a tumor around every single one of them every second of your life. It does that with white blood cells. So every white blood cell displaces a red blood cell. The red blood cell carries oxygen and nutrition. 500,000 becquerels, physical atoms. So think it takes an atom to pulse energy to make the becquerel. So 5,000 atoms a kilogram. A radioactive cesium, which pulses energy 600 feet, 75 miles from Fukushima. So when you use the term like millisieverts, you're completely dishonest. You're avoiding, like you didn't pick up millisieverts. There were 30 million one-ton bags. The minimum per kilogram was 100,000 atoms. Right? They describe it as a becquerel because that's the best way to manipulate you and deceive you. Air samples in Tokyo, 270 times more radioactive, more contaminated with the cesium, as if you could just have cesium, 137 in global weapons fallout peak in Tokyo, the air samples. Not 270 times millisieverts or something like that, but physical atoms we're talking about. So they're the most dishonest, the most predatory too, apparently, on subways. 29 million atoms. 185 atoms, like the age of a turtle, 185 years. So 185 atoms would be an evacuation zone at a nuclear plant pre-Fukushima worldwide. Some would be even less, 150 comes per minute would be an evacuation zone. Not millisieverts, not microsieverts, not... So 29 million after a single rainfall, that's never going to go away. You know, the study at Ottawa, Canada was 220 million atoms per liter of rainfall sustained of iodine-129, which never goes away. And when it's in your body doesn't matter how much energy you got, your body just attacks it every second for the rest of your life with white blood cells. So there's an incredible cause and effect. And this is why you see, and it sterilizes all the species because the thyroid glands are producing radioactive hormones. You want to get selenium because that's what your thyroid gland is going to convert into hormones, right? You can buy it at your health shops. And everybody should do it. Everybody should be taking that every day. So you produce some decent hormones instead of the radioactive ones. How could that be a bad thing? I apologize, I'm not on my A game lately. Happens to all of us when you start getting older, man. Seems like every 6 or 7 months something else breaks. 276,000 atoms a kilogram of radioactive cesium from soil samples near Tokyo. 18 million plus atoms per square meter. Like, so Tokyo should be absolutely abandoned. And I can take you through a whole bunch of the water at 300,000 atoms per square meter. So they're talking about the surface, eh? The world's largest drinking water supply built to supply Tokyo, 36 million people. And so they can't get rid of the sediment from the filtration facilities at these places because it's so radioactive. So how bad do you think the water's going to be? So the filters at the filtration facilities, water filtrations, must be lethal doses after a short period of time. I can march you right across the entire country with that stuff. Ontario Tech University exploring the role of nuclear nano reactors. I hate the word nano with a passion, eh? To widen access to a cleaner, and this is Canada, right? So I'm from Canada, unfortunately. To widen access to a cleaner and less expensive energy source. Nuclear is the most expensive energy source there is. It's the most resource-intensive industry in human history. And not only that, nuclear plants need an enormous amount of energy to run. So a typical nuclear plant has 2 large, full-size, dedicated gas, coal, or oil plants. Typically, it's coal because coal is cheaper for the nuclear plant. They can't make a profit as it is, right? And they're ruthless monsters. The university partners with George Brown College, Brookfield. I wonder if they had anything to do with that company, Brookfield. Sustainability Institute to explore new technology within the nuclear sector. Anything nuclear can do, geothermal can do it 100 times better, and it can do it right away. This is rendering. This is ChatGPT rendering. It's not real, right? It'll never look anything like that. Like the Canadian small modular reactors are 240 feet, 24-story buildings. They're like look up a picture of a 24-story apartment building, and they call that a small modular reactor. It's just the absurdness. But that's what the industry does, and people don't question it. Because the nuclear industry, there's so much of this evil out there. It's a flood of scumbags, right? As Canada moves toward the goal of achieving net zero emission, the best way to get to net zero is get rid of nuclear. You got geothermal is the way to go. And geothermal, you can do it less than $5 million a megawatt. And if you go an extra kilometer, you could be at 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, hotter than nuclear could ever hope to be. Designed to last 25 years and be refueled every 5 years, depending on the fuel you use, it could be every 2 years. And then the fuel goes into a pool. Now they're going to be using mixed oxide fuel to make this little thing work. And so that stuff is just a disaster. It's reclaimed uranium plutonium. So the emissions from a normal nightmare reactor is 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. The emissions from these, once you take it out and put it in the fuel pool, is going to be 2 billion times more toxic than industrial poison. It should never exist. It's an abomination. It's just shocking that could exist. The world is looking to Canada. I needed a laugh. To drive innovation and push the boundaries within the nuclear sector. Push the boundaries. Listen, you've been trying to make a small modular reactor for 80 years. Okay? You got 100 new companies that started up that still can't crack it. And because it can't be cracked, right? The economies of scale, that's why they done the big reactors in the first place. Like the new scale reactors were going to be half the size of a full reactor and was going to be something like 5 times the cost. It'd be cheaper to build 5 large reactors than a dozen small modular reactors. Do you get what's going on? Like they don't. None of them have a full application into the regulatory agency. None of them. We've been covering it so long. I just refuse to go away. I refuse to give up. We need people to fight back this industry, right? So the idea is over time I can educate a lot of people and give them a perfect narrative to bash the nuclear industry with, and we can start taking back some ground. But unfortunately, that never really happened. That's just the cards were dealt. And it's not for lack of trying. I can tell you that much. And improving quality of life. Because these things are disease factories. You can't contain the emissions from the fuel pools. This is why almost every nuclear power plant is surrounded by farms. Because if I don't laugh, I'll say some pretty naughty stuff. Say, Deep Fission, based in Berkeley, California. We know who they are. Ultra safe. This is Muller, her and her dad, right? Elizabeth Muller and her dad. Ultra safe, because Ultra safe nuclear just went bankrupt after they stole all the investors' billions of dollars. And they never even tried to get an application into the regulatory agency to build a reactor. They were just intent on stealing billions of dollars like the other companies. Now this story is nuts. Ultra-safe underground nuclear reactor that produces power as cheaply as solar farms. You believe these people? Nuclear is the most expensive stuff that ever existed. And so anything new, and there's a few key things you got to think about when you hear these stories. When they say, well, we can, and Elizabeth Muller is saying she can have a reactor up and running, producing energy for population in 2029. So you know it's not true. Because with any reactor, you have to build one at one of the national laboratories. You got to run it hard for many, many years to get the kinks out of it. Just the whole applications, just the site setting, just grooming the whole site. You're talking about 10, 12 years before any of that comes to fruition. So when they tell you, that's because they're trying to suck investors in and steal their money. That's all they're trying to do. And Muller, we know her and her dad. They were scumbags before, but when they started up that company, well, listen to what she says here. Drill holes a mile, 2 miles, 4 miles deep. And if you're in a borehole a mile underground, you have the exact conditions to create a pressurized water reactor without the construction cost. This is madness to even say something what she's saying. And because most of it's underground, deep fission microreactor is an extraordinary shape. They got a hole in the ground with a sign above it. Picture something as narrow as a garbage can as tall as a house, 30 feet, 40 feet tall. The heat is absorbed in water pressurized to about 150 atmospheres. Which is like 14.6 pounds per square inch per atmosphere. 2,200 atmosphere, 2,200 pounds per square inch, or something like that. It's a little below 2,200 pounds per square inch, I think. The superheated water now slightly radioactive. If it's in contact with the fuel, that's the reactor. Then it's full of plutonium, uranium, americium. It's full of 1,000 different fission products. Flows out of the reactors used to boil clean water in another part of the plant. Well, that's what he called it, slightly radioactive. Scumbags. Used to boil clean water, so this is the stuff they're talking about is in contact with the fuel. Not slightly radioactive. This is a nightmare concoction. You drink a cup of it, your skin will fall off, and then you died. Used to boil clean water in another part of the plant, so it is in contact, and then they call it slightly radioactive. Just unbelievably dishonest, eh? Everything in the nuclear industry. They've been telling you it's like a banana and a potato chip, walking in the sunshine, climbing mountains for 80 years. And it doesn't have anything to do with those properties. And it has none of those attributes. It attacks everything with replicating cells immediately. That steam then drives turbines to generate, you guessed it, zero carbon. That's just a disgusting, that's a vulgar word, zero carbon. It's in a mile deep hole, the weight of water alone naturally creates about 150 atmospheres of pressure at the reactor. Well, it has to be contained to do that. So, 2,200 pounds. First off, if you're gonna drill down into the earth, you're going to cause, it's no longer a solid chunk anymore because you put this hole there. And then if you compress it, put 2,200 pounds of pressure there, it's not unreasonable to expect it to crack. And then it's no longer contained. Putting the active reactor so far underground means the safety should be much less of an issue. Really? So, like, isn't that the perfect place for a China syndrome to start, right there? These are delusional. I guess the story was concocted to get investors to invest in Muller's and her dad's company, right? So that's what they've been doing. They're filthy rich after just a couple of years of a company with no application into the regulatory agency, with no reactor, with no product whatsoever. They got over $1 billion. It would be much safer from tornadoes. What does that say about all the other reactors, I wonder? Tsunamis and airplane crashes and terrorists. Well, Muller's a terrorist, but was saying she wants to put a reactor deep underground where they can't do anything with it if it melts down. That's terrorism in every sense of the word. Even for earthquakes a mile underground, you could have some shaking. You're not going to have the same potential for things toppling over. They don't need to topple over. Earthquakes are known to fracture. Like, it's an impossible to find anybody in the nuclear industry that's sensible. Muller envisions drilling multiple holes for multiple reactors at a single location, perhaps as many as 100 over 3 acres. You know what she's talking about? She's talking about geothermal, right? That's what geothermal is going to do. And she wants to steal that idea. She doesn't want to do any of it. She just wants people to invest in her company to keep the lie going as long as they can till they go bankrupt, like Ultra Safe Nuclear just went bankrupt. And NuScale went bankrupt. And in fact, Deep Fission did nut jobs. Recently signed a commitment to develop 2 gigawatts of nuclear energy to power nearby purpose-built AI-ready data centers. And that picture I showed you earlier, that's what that was, data center. It hopes the first reactor could be operational in 2029 at a location still to be finalized. This is an ambitious goal for any new reactor, let alone so novel of an idea. This is untested. There's zilch possibility that they're going to have anything built in 2029. There's zero possibility. Like if they put an application into the regulatory agency, you're looking at least 3, 4, 5 years for them to go hire 400 people on to go through that application. You know, then they're going to say, well, this is not going to work. You have to redesign this. They'll have to submit a whole bunch back to the company. The company's going to have to redesign those to meet the international approval. When they finally get the green light, then they got to raise the money to build these exorbitant, expensive reactors. But they can't just build it. They have to go to a national laboratory site to build an experimental one, and then they got to run that to see if it works. They can't just, let's take a halt, dump a bunch of fuel down there, everybody start pissing on it, and get a chain reaction going. That's an ambitious goal for any new reactor, let alone so novel an idea. It's still too early to tell if this concept stands up technologically or commercially, says Adam Stein, the director of the Nuclear Energy Innovation Program at the broadly pro-nuclear non-profit degenerate scumbag Breakthrough Institute. These are just disgusting parasites, and even they're not going to put their name on it. I mean, they're the lowest forms of life, and they won't even put their name on it. So what does that tell us? Stein points out that the design has some things in common with advanced geothermal power generation. No shit, Einstein. Which aims to use naturally hot subterranean rocks to heat water and generate electricity at the surface without any reactor at all. Well, quasi-electric geothermal, right? They're going to use kind of a a directed energy weapon, to evaporate the rocks so they can go deeper and get the temperatures much hotter than gas, oil, coal, or nuclear can be. And then they can replace gas, oil, and coal and nuclear plants with geothermal. And because the technology, the way the technology works, and there's another company that's really promising, that not just promising, but is trying to raise the capital to get up and running properly. They are building geothermal sites, but I mean, they developed a simple technique for drilling deeper a lot quicker. And they're using 25,000 pounds per square inch water jets to slice up the hard rocks. And then they're using pneumatic hammers to pulverize the sliced up rocks. And then the drill bit comes down behind all of that. It's like 6 times faster than the fracking companies can drill. And they can drill the last mile. They can drill the extra deep. And then hit the enormous temperatures. And they can have everything up and running in short order. And they don't have to build an experimental reactor. They don't have to pollute the earth for 1 billion years. Muller herself quips, I sometimes refer to deep fission as assisted geothermal. She really is just a worthless human, eh? We're just creating the heat at the bottom rather than relying on it from the rock. Well, if you're going to go through all the work and dig down, why not just do geothermal? Why would you put a reactor a mile down where you can't contain it if it goes wrong? Where you can't, you can't do something, you can't get at it, ever. In case you're wondering, I mean, sadistic monsters come to mind when you think of Muller. Elizabeth Muller. In case you're wondering why you need the reactor at all, a fission system would produce much hotter water and thus more electricity than a natural geothermal activity. That's not true. Quatsi Electric and that other company I was talking about, that's the whole point of those companies. They're going to go the extra couple of miles and hit the enormous temperatures, up to 1,000 degree Fahrenheit temperatures, which is hotter than gas plants, hotter than oil plants, hotter than coal plants, hotter than nuclear power plants. Like they're just looking for any excuse to build a reactor, and they got the same amount of reactors now as they had in 1996. What does that tell you? This industry, and the only reason they're doing that is because they're giving extensions to all the nuclear disease factories that already polluted the planet for 40 or 50 years. Lifting cables. There could be a problem when it comes to getting the sign-off from the United States Nuclear Regulatory Commission, which has historically been pretty inflexible. In 2024, Deep Fission presented the initial conceptual design for its reactor to the Non-Regulatory Commission. The non-regulatory questions captured in the document in August show that many were not entirely convinced. So even the crazies weren't convinced. What does that tell us? And then there's the fate of the leftover nuclear waste. It's hard to imagine people like this actually exist. This is truly one of the stupidest designs we've ever come across. And in 23 years, we've pretty well seen them all. Deep Fission's micro-reactor would need refueling about every 2 years. And leave spent fuel that would be dangerously radioactive for thousands of years. It's just madness. Welcome to the machine. Welcome to the madness. How and where is nuclear waste stored in the United States? What the hell is he doing? How come he's not wearing a paper suit, for goodness sakes? The paper suit can't protect you, by the way. They'll call them radiation protection suits. the same suits you buy to paint your rooms and throw it away after. $6-7 paper suits. TEPCO used to say they burn 7,000 paper suits a day in their incinerators, their on-site incinerators. I don't know if I got the stomach to go through this story. That last story kind of took all the good out of me. It was a big story, too. Jesus. Yeah, let's just go through some of it anyway. This is the vent. So underneath these contraptions they got there is a so-called dry cast. Now the dry cast is still heating up, so they got these vents and these fans and everything circulating air. And they bury him down in the ground. That's why he's able to stand up where he is. Because if this was at the surface, he would be getting a significant dose. I wanted to bring up the poll. Did 36 reactor cores melting down at Fukushima's 4 reactor buildings that had a total of 8 fuel pools, 2 at the top of each building, cause an extinction level event? Now I can walk you through the evidence of the extinction level event. They just found 70 more emaciated gray whales a few days back. So I had launched research expeditions for 6 years from Vancouver, British Columbia, that's Vancouver Island, all the way up to Alaska. Now there's 27,000 islands. And I approached it in ways you can't even imagine. The amount of effort and time and energy. I just took my time and meandered for 4 or 5 months a year and documented everything. I got 2 controllers, one for the drone, the other one for the underwater drone. That was early, I'm still getting used to things. This was a typical day. That's typically what it looked like. It was miserable because it's a tropical rainforest, right? There's 27,000 islands. And just because you hit away in the islands don't mean it's not miserable. It's miserable, trust me. You had 19-foot tide exchange every day, twice a day. These are all these animals. It should look like that normally, but I have to put in fake animals because there's no real ones. So this is just 2 of the 4 reactors of the apocalypse. Reactor 3 and 4, and that's 16 reactor cores in the fuel pools, and 1 in each reactor. Now in reactor 4, they took the one out of the reactor and put it in the pool, so there was 9 in that pool, 8 reactor cores in the Medusa, the plutonium mixed oxide number 3 reactor, plus the reactor was running was 9. So it's 18 reactor cores in 2 buildings. So there was also 2 other buildings, reactor 1 and 2, that had the same attributes and melted down. And we didn't go blind. We covered an absurd amount of documentation. This was the radioactive fallout from the French government, shown 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima levels. This model was based on 31 days when it stops. But when it gets to 20 days, the species are all gone. So that's cesium-137 at 1 million to 10 million times pre-Fukushima radiation fallout numbers. So there's absurd numbers covering the entire planet. A plume, it'd be like a snowstorm covering the entire planet. It never stops snowing and it never melts for 1 million years. That's radiation. Here's the model of the Neptunium-239 dispersal based on 20 days to your left. It decays to plutonium plutonium-239 after 2.5 days. And this is a plutonium-239 radioactive fallout model. So that's 3 different models covering the entire planet in 20 days or so. Okay. So 27,000 islands would take you 70 years to cover an island a day. So I went to all the pinch points. Now, you have to remember I was a commercial diver on that coastline and the Atlantic, but on that coastline for many years. And the species to your left I'm quite familiar with. I work with them 6 hours a day in that environment. So the species to your left are exterminated. What would you rather have, birds and bees or nuclear? Because right now you're kind of stuck with nuclear because the birds and the bees are just about gone. Expect 7,000 plus species, highly visible species in the tidal zones for the majority of them. So the species to your left, I went back for 5 extra years to see if the species to your left recovered. And as you can see, the beaches are empty. It used to be just absurd. You would break your neck going from low tide to high tide. Now it's an extinction event. And like these pictures I'm showing you don't really do it justice to what the species look like. It was beautiful. You know, you could never put your Zodiac up on a beach because I used to pick 20,000 of these when I was harvesting food each day. It was amazing. It was extraordinary. And years ago, I would brag, you'd be on an airplane flying back and forth to work. And I remember telling people, and you see all kinds of people turning around and looking at me when I was talking to somebody, how you can feed the entire planet on about 3 or 4% of the coastline and not damage it whatsoever with protein, right? Now, if you shipwreck there, you'll starve, even if you're by yourself. So after 6 years, I earned the right to ask the question, right? And the people that helped me and supported me also earned the right. I think we'll let it go there, eh? That way maybe I'll get another show in tomorrow night. I don't run myself into the ground. So Lucid puts out a lot of songs. And some of them are, and he does all the graphics too, right? Some of them where he's trying to tell a story and, you know, put some music to it and do all the graphics and everything. And that's a really, like, he's changing gears when he does that, right? It's really unique stuff. And he put out one the other day that I really like. You got to give it a chance because it's not like your typical song, you know, all cheery, happy, smiley beats. You got a lot of that great stuff. And must have touched my glasses or something. I'll close the poll after, so make sure you get a vote in on the poll before the show's over. Give us a thumbs up if you can make it that far. Did the 36 reactor cores that melted down at Fukushima Daiichi, the 4 reactor buildings, has 8 fuel pools with around 4 reactor cores or more in each fuel pool, because they don't have a repository, right? cause an extinction level event. And I just showed you the evidence of that from 6 years of just brutal research expeditions. That was tough times. All right. So James put out, it's Bye Bye Japan. It's an incredible story that he's telling her about Fukushima. That's really important. We're going to play that. I'm going to adjust the volume on my side to make sure it's in 1080. And James got 8,000 subscribers. Woo! He's only a few videos away from 300 anti-nuclear songs, which is way more than the entire population of Earth has produced in its entire history. Man, he's got some fantastic music. You should go through my playlist for anti-nuclear music. They're all from his site. That'll get you up to speed. Just go to the bottom, or no, the top. Yeah, start at the top, or whatever. Anyway, hopefully we'll see you tomorrow night. We'll get some kind of show in. Have a great night. Hugs. Don't forget to give us a thumbs up if you make it this far. Take care now.
Assemblies rose in zirc fire arcs. Satellites blinked, then systems cut. A heat spike log, then buried fast. Steel to gas and rods to mist. No report, no confirmation. Containment ruptured, left inert.
They're lying through their teeth. If Unit 4 goes, it's bye-bye Japan. It's bye-bye Japan. It's bye-bye Japan. The rods were never counted. They plant and pick the peaches. Near zones they won't announce. It's bye-bye Japan. No map will ever say the heat beneath the surface was never drawn away.
Expo styled the land as clean. Souvenir flags and big screens. Tasting tents and local fare to show there's nothing there.
The booth is bright, the words are smooth, the risk reframed as something moved, but none of this reveals the trace of radioisotopes still in the base.
This is regional revitalization.
Wipe out harmful rumors.
Fukushima prefectural official. It's bye-bye Japan. But say it's soft, not loud. Just measure trust in expo halls where questions aren't allowed. It's bye-bye spoken. The booths replaced the evidence, but never stopped what's broken.
Unit 4 containment breached. Fuel was lost beyond their reach. They called it heat, not full collapse, and filed it under post-impact.
No warnings held, the maps were changed, the risk rebranded, rearranged, but deep below the pressure builds and what was burned remains unsealed.
It's bye-bye, Japan.
Bye bye, Japan.